So today I want to talk about Cyrene again, because we just got a wave of new information about her role, and the community's reaction to it has been, let's just say, mixed. With her drip marketing expected in less than 2 weeks, this is the perfect moment to step back, look at where the leaks stand now, and how the player base is feeling about her shift from a supposed Castoris-only partner into what's now being described as a universal support, though still leaning heavily into the Chrysos heirs. I want to share what's been reported, how it compares to Hoyoverse's past patterns, and also highlight what fans are saying in the comments, because honestly, the discussion there is just as interesting as the leaks themselves. Save up to 25% on the current banners at lootbar.gg. All you need is your UID and server. The link is in the description. Now, early leaks described Cyrene as the Dream Remembrance support, kind of like Sparkle for her path. The reports said she would offer team-wide buffs like energy regeneration, true damage scaling, resistance penetration, maybe even defense reduction. And on top of that, she would summon a memo sprite, her spectral stingray, that wasn't just cosmetic, but actually empowered her whole team while active. At that stage, people were calling her a must-pull because she sounded like that rare kind of support you could put in almost any lineup and instantly make it better. But then the story started shifting. As the beta moved forward, more details painted her as much more specialized. Instead of being a universal enabler, she looked like she was tuned primarily for Chrysos heirs. Characters like Castoris with his dragon, Hisselin's with her follow-up mechanics, and of course March 7th's Evernight form, who buffs all memo sprites. In that picture, Cyrene was seen as the dedicated partner who completed the so-called Remembrance Super Comp. And now, things have flipped again. Based on the most recent testing teams, it's being speculated that Cyrene has been adjusted to function as a more general support. That doesn't mean she's suddenly Sparkle 2.0, who fits anywhere with no conditions, but it does suggest her buffs can reach beyond a single archetype. However, most of the actual builds she's been tested in still revolve around the Chrysos heirs, so the impression we're left with is that she's more of a hybrid, technically universal, but with her strongest numbers clearly tied to that heir synergy. This is where the community response comes in, because the comments on this leak post were all over the place. Some players immediately pushed back, saying the wording was vague. Universal support, but for Chrysos heirs, doesn't really clarify much. Others argued that even supporting all Chrysos heirs is basically universal, because the group covers so many archetypes. For example, if she works with Maide, that naturally overlaps with other HP scalers like Jingliu or Blade. If she works with Anaxagoras, that overlaps with ATK scaling characters like Jing Yuan. In that sense, she'd already cover most damage dealers in the game outside of break units or outliers like Acheron. There were also Theorycraft-style comments imagining how her kit might be worded. Some suggested she could have phrasing like, "For every Amphorius character in the party, grant team-wide true damage," which would make her both general and heir-biased. Others compared it to Genshin's region-based mechanics, or to Robin and Tribby, who already have buffs that scale differently depending on team setup. Of course, not everyone was optimistic. Some players accused leakers of rage baiting, pointing out that earlier posts described her as Castoris's exclusive support, and now suddenly she's universal after backlash. There's definitely a sense of leak fatigue in the community, with people frustrated at how often the story seems to change week by week. At the same time, defenders pointed out that Anon Leaks has been very reliable in this cycle, and that kits do genuinely change between V1 and V3 testing. Evernight, for example, was originally tested as more of a Castorici sub-DPS in early 3.6, but was shifted into a true main DPS by V3. So it's not unrealistic that Cyrene's role could also be evolving mid-beta. Personally, I think this hybrid positioning actually makes a lot of sense. If Hoyoverse had released back-to-back dedicated Castoris supports, it would have been a disaster for player perception. It would feel like they were forcing everyone into one hyper-specific comp, and players who didn't like Castoris would just skip. By adjusting Cyrene into a universal-leaning support, she now has appeal even outside of heir teams, but she still reaches her peak with them. That balance keeps her sellable while also preserving her narrative ties. And don't forget the Relic angle. In version 3.6, one of the new sets directly buffs all allies while a memo sprite is on the field. That screams Cyrene synergy, and it's basically Hoyoverse telling us to prepare in advance. We've seen this play before. Kafka's DOT Relic set came one patch before her. Acheron's Nihility set dropped before she did. So if you're planning to pull Cyrene, farming that Relic set early is just common sense. From a lore perspective, the Chrysos heirs are central to Amphoreus. They're successors who carry the divine core flames of the Titans, and their entire identity revolves around enduring and reshaping this world. Cyrene being one of them means her kit being tied to heirs isn't just a design decision, it's lore synergy. Fans in the comments even joked about wanting her to have custom voice lines for each heir, cheering on Phaenon or encouraging Castoris mid-battle. Whether or not Hoyoverse actually goes that far, it shows how much people want her presentation to lean into this role. So what does all this mean for players? If you're invested in Remembrance, Cyrene still looks like the final puzzle piece. She completes Evernight, Castoriche, and Hisselins into an absurdly strong lineup. But even if you're not, the new info suggests she won't be wasted in other comps. She's not quite a pure generalist like Ruin May or Sparkle, but she's no longer locked to just one DPS either. In my eyes, that makes her a safer pull overall, even if her absolute best use case remains with the heirs. The big takeaway from the community reaction is that people are divided but hopeful. Some think this leak is just vague language, others believe it's a sign Hoyoverse is listening and adjusting her away from being Castoris' slave. At the end of the day, though, everything is still subject to change until her kit is finalized. And with drip marketing right around the corner, September 9th if the countdowns are right, we'll have official confirmation soon enough. So, I want to hear from you. Do you prefer Cyrene as a specialized support who makes one comp ridiculously strong, or do you like the idea of her being more universal, even if it means her buffs are a little more generic? Are you saving for her in 3.7, or waiting to see if she really does have that flexibility? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading through them, and I'm curious how divided you guys are compared to what we've seen on Reddit. That's everything we know so far about Cyrene's updated role and the community's reaction to it. I'll keep tracking changes as they come, because her kit has already shifted multiple times. For now, she looks like a hybrid universal support who still shines brightest with her fellow Chrysos heirs. Thanks for hanging out and talking this through with me, and if you want more breakdowns like this as we get closer to 3.7, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. Save up to 25% on the current banners at lootbar.gg. All you need is your UID and server. The link is in the description.